Hey, welcome. Dave from Nick Snacks. Been a bit since I've done anything other than an unboxing. And that's because a lot of times I get an idea for a video, and it seems like everybody gets it done before I can. And obviously better than I can. I'm still new, I'm still playing, so here we go. A lot of people have already talked about this. I think we got the hive mind out there based on who we're watching and all that stuff, but the is a 9.8 really worth the money? And so I think I have something to add to the conversation that people haven't really gotten into. I think I have a tool that I've been using that if you use, you might be able to focus in more on what grade you can target when you're looking for a book based on what you're looking for and your budget. So stick around and we'll get right into that. All right. So I took the top 5 comics off of Go Collect, and in just starting my research, I figured out here that the Web of Spider-Man #1 and the X-Force #2 were gonna reach slab costs before I was able to really analyze them. So I pulled up Wolverine Limited Series #1, and then I went with New Mutants '98 because they kind of fit kind of an overarching thing that we're going to get to, and they're about the same era. So let's go ahead and take a look and get started. Let's start off with Amazing Spider-Man 316. So everybody's been focusing, like I said, on this 9.8 to 9.6, and we're going to see that the conclusion a lot of people have come to is that to get a really high grade book, sometimes, maybe most of the time, it's kind of hard to justify the 2.5, sometimes even 3 times increase in price for a 9.8 to 9.6. And I think we'll see on these newer books that's completely valid. But I think if you dig a little bit deeper and you look at GPA or whatever price guide you're using, you can analyze the prices to find what I'm calling breakpoints. You math geeks probably know them as inflection points, even though we're looking at these with line segments. So looking here at this Amazing Spider-Man 316, you can see starting down here at an 8.0, it goes up fairly linearly until you get to a 9.0, and then it flatlines over here to a 9.2. So the circle here in green shows you your most bang for your buck in that range because the breakpoint has shifted over. It's fairly linear. Now you may not be able to afford that book. That may be too high. It may be lower than you're looking for. If you look here, it goes back up a little bit more for the 9.4. Personally, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but you might. So a 9.4 or 9.2 is probably a good breakpoint for you to look at. So looking at one of my favorite books here, X-Men 141, it gets a little bit more clear. If you're looking at a 9.4, again, this green circle is showing you where it takes a steep increase up to 9.6 and then huge increase up to 9.8. It shows you that breakpoint at 9.4. It is slightly more dollar per grade than a 9.2. Not much, though. If you're looking for lower, down here, let's try a different color. This is linear, so I would definitely not look at the 8. You're going to get the 8.5 for about the same price. 9.0 sneaks up just a little bit. This section here is also linear, pretty much. So 8.5, 9.2. So again, I'd look at that 9.2, 9.4 range on this book. So this analysis, how do I get my stuff here? I'm using Microsoft Excel. I'm putting the data in. I'm putting the grades in from 9.8 down to going as low as an 8 here on these first few books. Just to look at them, to try to show you guys the picture. You can go whatever grade range you're looking at. If you let's say you're targeting a Fantastic Four number one, somewhere from a 2.5 to a 4. By all means, put those in there, just those few grades, and check them out. Looking at this Wolverine here, sitting pretty good at a 9.2, right? It cuts through some of these um, variances. Somebody either got an 8.5 for a deal, or somebody paid way too much for an 8.0, or several of them. Probably somebody got an 8.5 for a deal. But again, looking at this, your trend goes up. It definitely flattens out here around that 9.2. So best bang for your buck, best dollar per point in your grade is 9.2. So we're being, I don't want to say frugal, but we're being careful with our money, which I'm going to address here in a bit. Deadpool, again, much like X-Men 130, it's linear until roughly 9.2. It barely ticks up for a 9.4. So again, personally, I'd spend the extra $50, get the 9.4. Contrary to what I'm going to say a little bit later, you want to get as nice a book as you can, but I would caveat that you don't want to break the bank, right? So it brings us this whole concept of the 9.8 where, if you go linear up here, this 9.4, it just sneaks up a little bit for a 9.6. I'd probably spring for the 9.6 here, guys. So checking out everybody's favorite book right now, Uncanny X-Men 130. Looking at Dazzler here, the dollar per grade point, starting from an 8.0, all the way up to like a 9.4 is almost completely linear. This entire line is going up at about the same slope, the same rise over run. Here comes that math stuff you didn't think you needed in school, kids. Boom! Anyways, so your most bang for your buck is the 9.4. Shoots right back up into that 9.6, straight up into the 9.8 stratosphere, which itself is going up like crazy. So I brought up X-Men 130, so I get my chance to talk about the Taylor Swift Dazzler rumors. So a couple months ago, somebody rumored, I don't know where that first rumor came from. If you know, comment down below. There we go. But 2 weekends ago, Ryan Reynolds hanging out with Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman and the director for Deadpool 3 and Ryan's wife and several other stars that I don't know who they are because I'm an old man. And so all of a sudden everybody's like, damn, it's Dazzler, right? So we're hanging out with all these stars. We know Taylor and Ryan have been friends forever. Ryan loaned her the Deadpool suit a couple years ago so she could have an excellent costume for Halloween or some other costume party, right? So bam, X-Men 130 goes to the moon, Alice. It's already almost back up to COVID numbers. It's just crazy over here, sitting about 2,000. And I put this thing together 2 days ago. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2,500 now because everybody loves Taylor Swift, right? So 2 days ago, we were up at like 2,000. I don't know. We'll have to look after this and maybe I'll put some comments on here. But she's there watching her alleged boyfriend Travis Kelce, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? So it all makes sense. These guys are together. Taylor's at the party, at the game, right? She invites all her friends, including the people that she's going to be shooting the movie with that hasn't been shooting for 8 weeks because of all the strikes. I don't know. So that makes sense to everybody. But what happens is what might make more sense. Hugh Jackman got divorced. Ryan and he are good friends. Ryan and Taylor are good friends. Maybe they're like, hey, maybe we should all get together and, keep Hugh's mind off the fact that he's getting divorced. All right, sounds like a good idea. I'm going to be in whatever town they were, watching my boyfriend Travis play football. And they're like, cool, we live near there. I don't know. I could check this out, right? Maybe she's not Dazzler. Maybe these rumors are just rumors, right? As much as you love Taylor Swift, and who doesn't, right? Why are you putting all your cash into this rumor? Why are people spending $2,000 on X-Men number 130? What happens if it's not gonna hit? What happens if she's Mephisto? The book is gonna tank. It's gonna turn into the red-headed stepchild of the Dark Phoenix saga again. But real speculators like myself, we're thinking meta, right? This whole thing is about Travis Kelce. So we know this whole time the real scoop is that Travis Kelce is going to be NFL Super Pro, right? So that's where you need to put your money. And it's a lot cheaper too because they're only like $8. So here are some definitions from the official CGC guide to collecting comics. 9.6 near mint plus. Gotta have that plus, I guess. Comics of this grade are allowed a few more general defects to the cover, but they must be extremely small, and only one of two can be present at a time. And that's from when they were discussing errors that you can see on a 9.8. You can only have one of the errors that is showing up. If you have two different types of errors, it's going to fall down to a 9.4. 9.4, near mint, considered the threshold of ultra high grades. This grade begins to allow some light handling wear or defects. Only one or a couple can be present at once depending on their size. So again, these defects are small, but now you can have two. So let's say you go from your 9.4 has a blunted corner and a little spine tick. That's where you go. Now, if you're 9.6, you can only have a little blunted corner. Something like that. That's the way I read it. Okay? So I'm an older guy, right? I remember before this 10 scale, don't get me wrong, I like the 10 scale. This isn't going to be shaking my fists at you younger whelps on my yard, but we used to go with these grades, and then you got that in between where very good, fine, very fine, near mint was a grade, and this is what they were listed as in Overstreet. So, especially as you get to the tippy top here, we're just, my opinion, I think sometimes we're being nitpicky at the difference, right? You have the tiniest color breaking spine tick, and it's going to cost you thousands of dollars on a fairly new book. Ultimate Fallout number 4. It's gone down, but a 9.8 copy is around $1,500 nowadays. 9.6 is what, $600? So that's $900 because the book's got a tiny color breaking spine tick or a little tiny little corner soft, right? I personally can't see that, especially for newer books. Older books, sure, I want to get them so that they present as good as possible, but I would argue that a 9.6 presents just as well as a 9.8 from 6 inches away. Right? You would have to get up on this Daredevil number 1, which you guys may or may not. Yeah, it's right there. Newsstand edition, which is why I got it graded, to see that it has something wrong with it. And maybe even then you can't, which brings us to our next discussion point. So let's talk about these grades for a hot minute. How many videos have you seen lately where people get books back from CGC and they don't get the grades that they think the books deserved? They come back from CGCs and they're like, I know this book was a 9.8. How did it get a 9.4? How did it get a 9.6? Well, I have some theories on that. Grading subjective, But CGC is supposed to have 3 guys looking at it, right? Well, what do you mean by looking at it? Here's my theory. You have graders. They get the books that they're responsible for. Grader A, let's say Grader A is responsible for looking at this Daredevil book. He gets it. He thumbs through it. Right? He assigns it a grade. He's like, well, all right, it's got some writing on the back. Let's give this thing a 6.0. Okay? He gives it to Grader B, who also looks at it. He knows it's a 6.0. Grader B is not regrading it. He's just looking for anything that would draw it below a 6.0. He's going to go, Yeah, I guess you're right. Grader B now passes it off to Grader C, does the same thing. What do you know? It's a 6.0. Why do I come to this conclusion? Well, let's attack a 9.6. Grader A, who, if you paid attention to people who are getting books back, you get the good grader or the bad grader, right? Grader A takes it. He's the good grader, by the way. He takes this next book, and this is a beautiful, it's not, 9.8 Daredevil 167, or 9.8 candidate. And he looks at it, and he's like, well, there's a little printer thing there. Maybe a little bit of staple. All right, it's a 9.6. So he passes it to Grader B, Grader C, and they're like, yep, nothing's going to pull it down from a 9.6. So they slab it, they send it back to Joe Schmuckatelli. Joe Schmuckatelli opens it on his YouTube channel. He's like, goodness, I know that was a 9.8. It only had this little thing on the corner. So he's like, is it worth it? Should I spend the $40 to send it back into CGC? He decides it is. So he packages it back up, doesn't press it, doesn't clean it, nothing. He looks it over and he's like, man, that still looks perfect. I'm sending it back. He sends it back. Guess who gets it this time? Grader B. Grader B looks at it and goes, I don't think that holds it back from a 9.8, right? He takes it, passes it to Grader C. Grader C says, no, I think you're right. I think that's a 9.8. He passes it to Grader A, who last time thought it was a 9.6. Now, even if he goes, I think this is a 9.6, the other two have outweighed him, right? So they may convince him. I'm guessing it's 2 out of 3. Who knows? But either they convince him or he doesn't have much of a say in it. So I think that's how you get it. Long story short, what's the difference between a 9.6 and a 9.8? Whether or not Grader A had, I don't know, good cookies at lunch or something. I don't know. So why are we not just buying 9.6s? They're good books. They're beautiful books. They got like a little ding. They might have a tiny, tiny little color breaking spine tick, if that. I don't understand why we're spending thousands of dollars extra on some of these things. I mean, Ultimate Fallout 4, the variant edition, tens of thousands maybe on a book that's 20 years old for a variant cover. I don't know. I think I saw one being sold for $35,000 for a 9.8 and like $19,000 for a 9.6. It's $20,000 for some guy just went, nope, I think that's a 9.6. What are we doing? Not that I know. So, right? So this brings us to the don't put all your eggs in one basket discussion, right? So with the 5 books I started out with, 9.8s, $1,550, 15, 16, 777, 682, 583. Total $5,000 and some change, right? Now, if you buy all 5 of those books in a 9.6, it's under $2,000. If you use the breakpoints there, My picture is hiding it, but it's like $1,280, right? If Taylor Swift is not Dazzler and you spent $2,000 on X-Men 130, you're going to lose half of that. You're going to lose the $1,000. I've done it. I bought She-Hulk #1. I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I still think the show was great. You didn't. Okay, whatever. But if you spend all your money on that one book, you could buy all 5 books for just a little bit more. And then you're diversified. If it turns out that Taylor Swift is not Dazzler and your $500 book only goes down by half, now you're only out $250 and you still have all 5 books. Just saying. Just saying. If Taylor goes down, fine. Ooh, that sounded weird. I'm going to put that one in the bloopers. If Taylor... Whew, I got to go down after that one. That was great. Taylor goes down. Ooh. Got a little rich there, Dave. Music takes the man.